Well, much more on the flooding later in the programme, but now an exclusive insight into some of the worst practices of Britain's banks. Or, as an insider tells us tonight, it just verged on illegal, but morally it was bankrupt. For the very first time, a whistleblower has revealed how the Royal Bank of Scotland deliberately destroyed perfectly viable small businesses in an effort to save the bank during the credit crisis. Our business correspondent, Siobhan Kennedy, has this report.
Bailed out by the taxpayer for £45 billion. But did a unit inside RBS deliberately destroy small businesses in the rush to get the bank back in the black? Tonight, for the first time, we hear from a whistleblower inside the controversial global restructuring group known as GRG, who says it deliberately piled on fees to push businesses over the edge, stripped them of their assets to sell at a profit, and intercepted payments to help prop up the bank.
We gave them choices and they chose one bad thing or the other bad thing.
And we hear from one family whose business was destroyed.
It's a gun to your head. You either take them or fall over.
It all started when staff inside GRG were called to an emergency meeting at the bank's headquarters. GRG was supposed to nurse sick companies back to health, but at this meeting, staff were told its ethos had changed. The financial crisis was in full swing and RBS was in trouble. Save companies if you can, they were told, but first and foremost, get our money back and save the bank. No one from inside GRG has ever spoken in public about the unit's practices until now. I met a man whose identity we have agreed to protect, who worked as a relationship manager for GRG for 2 years.
It was an immoral survivalist tactic that the bank used, who had a huge amount of losses on their balance sheet, to try to survive something. And in doing so, they've managed to destroy a number of businesses that didn't need destroying.
And then, you got the details?
Yes, I have.
The Smiths family say their business was in good shape before GRG came along. The couple built up their hotel and events business from scratch 20 years ago with the help of their bank, NatWest, which is owned by RBS.
Everything was going really well. We were happy, felt proud of what we'd achieved, very successful.
In 2007, they say they were encouraged by their bank to take another loan to buy a second hotel, Solberge Hall, in Yorkshire. But a year later, as RBS was teetering on the brink, the Smiths received a visit from their local bank manager.
She came and told us very tearfully that unfortunately she would no longer be looking after us and we were being transferred to RBS in London, the GRG group, which
Didn't mean anything to us, did it?
No.
But
her tears meant something to us.
Yeah, her distress.
That conversation was to be the beginning of the end of their business. A meeting with GRG was scheduled. The whistleblower said it was a familiar pattern, as one by one healthy businesses were transferred over to GRG for apparent support.
Just describe what was being said to these businesses.
We would tell them we were nervous. We would put them on a watch list. From that point on, we would start saying we wanted to sign new terms and agreements with you where we take X stakes in your company or we take larger fees from your company.
A script familiar to the Smiths. After they met with GRG, the terms of their business loans were changed. But that wasn't the main problem.
The loans themselves were not difficult. It was the fees that they attached to the loans, and their word of support is a strange one, I must be honest with you. It's the support that they gave meant they charged between 15 and 25,000 a month in fees for their support.
And what was their support?
I don't know. I don't know what support they gave us.
The Smiths may not think they gained from the support, but it cost them. In September 2009, RBS charged them a fee of £111,825. And then they were hit with weekly fees, which they say have never been properly explained. And they just kept coming and coming. In all, more than £500,000. It ruined the Smiths, but these sorts of charges have been applied by RBS's GRG unit to businesses up and down the country.
What were the fees actually for?
Nothing, really. The fees were just really there to make sure that they were being pushed to the brink, in my opinion. every week we would have emails sent down to us showing who brought in the most fees and for what companies. And people were usually patted on the back for that by senior management. And we were often asked why, once again, increasingly throughout the time, why we weren't putting more fees on these companies to get the most out of them.
With £500,000 worth of fees put on them over a 2-year period, the Smiths were forced to sell their first hotel in Newmarket, which has since been reopened with new owners. Eventually, their second hotel in Yorkshire was put into administration. But what happened to it opens up a whole new set of questions. The title deeds for that hotel show that it's now owned by an organisation called West Register. But what is West Register, and what is its relationship with GRG? GRG is already the subject of 3 investigations, including the Serious Fraud Office. And one of the key questions being asked is, what did RBS do with all the properties, the hotels, offices and restaurants that it seized from the thousands of businesses that it was supposed to support? The answer it's claimed in many cases is that they were deliberately deposited in another unit of RBS called West Register, whose purpose it's alleged was to sell them on at a later date and make a profit for the bank, something the bank denies. But tonight, our whistleblower alleges that was the intention.
From what I saw, it was all completely part of the strategy. There were several aid memoirs beginning from 2008 around there saying quite clearly, wherever possible, put property into West Register. It was written on paper. It was part of a directive.
We've obtained one of the internal documents he's referring to, and it clearly shows explicit directives to push businesses into West Register for the benefit of RBS.
Our ability to acquire suitable assets into the West Register companies is not only a reconstruction tool, but also a source of future profits.
Any assets we had that we wanted to sell onwards, we couldn't really legally hold into RBS, so we would move them to West Register or sell them to West Register for a very small amount of money, sell them onwards and make money off that and put it back in the RBS balance sheet. It just verged on illegal, but morally it was bankrupt.
But did you feel it was potentially illegal?
Yes, but we had no say at that point in time. We couldn't do anything to stop it. It was either keep doing what you're told to be doing or get out.
Whether legal or illegal remains to be seen, but it's clear that what he claims GRG staff were doing was at best ethically dubious. He eventually left GRG, but now with investigations into the division, he says he felt compelled to come forward. And in another serious allegation, he tells this programme that GRG operatives were ordered to redirect payments from customers' business accounts and put the money instead into RBS's own accounts.
The strategies were becoming increasingly hostile towards the companies. Where companies were savable, we had our eyebrows raised looking at the revised strategies where it said to recover all assets as fast as possible or to halt and intercept transactions to their clients and put it back into an RBS account to make sure we got our money back as fast as possible.
So where the business was paying its own suppliers, you're saying that GRG directors were authorising that those payments were intercepted, and rather than the business paying its supplier, it was taking that money and putting it towards RBS's own financial debt.
Yes, that was part and parcel of being in GRG. We had complete control over your accounts and, in effect, act as a shadow director of the company.
A fact RBS doesn't deny, and in a statement it told us GRG saved 650 firms last year. It added,
"These are serious allegations that have done damage to RBS's reputation, and the independent review we have commissioned will examine these. We refute the accusations put forward that we are systematically defrauding businesses, and no evidence has been provided to the bank."
Tonight's whistleblower revelations are shocking, but this isn't a story about the past. GRG stands accused of the same sharp practices today, pushing businesses under that otherwise would have survived. As for the Smiths, RBS Tonight says it suffered substantial losses on their loans, bought the hotel in the open market, and that the fees it charged reflected the significant risk the bank took. That's little consolation for the Smiths, though. They know they'll never get their business back, but with investigations into GRG ongoing, what they want more than anything now is answers.
You hear other stories and you just want to scream. That's the same that happened to us. So I hope it all comes out clean and that you find out the truth about what's going on. I think it was rotten to the core of that group.